Alrighty, as everyone is joining, we have two amazing panelists today, Davy and Randall. If I could have you both introduce yourselves. Randall, if you want to go first.
Sure. So great to be with you and thank you. My name is Randall McCoy. I head recruitment for City Year on campus at USC and also for Los Angeles. And I'm originally from the East Coast, but have been working with City Year for 3 years. I personally did a year of service in the program in Washington, D.C., and it really allowed me to set myself up very well professionally, but also the opportunity to truly make impact in people's lives. And so after my year of service, ended up working with the United Nations for a number of years internationally, before I circled back to take on this role to help emerging leaders like yourself do a year of service. Nice to be with you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Randall. Thanks for having me as well. I'm Davy Kurtzendorfer. So I have a very long, difficult last name, but it is because I'm originally from Germany. But now I'm here in the US working with Laura USA almost 4.5 years. So super excited to be here. And cannot wait to give you some inside scoop in terms of what our recruiters would love to hear from your students.
Amazing. Thank you both. So as you can see, we have these great perspectives today from Davy and Randall into how to prepare for career fairs happening next week. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and get started and jump right into our first question. So we have some upcoming recruiting fairs next week. We have the Culture and Community Recruiting event on Wednesday, our career fair on Thursday. What are some things that students can do to be prepared for next week?
Great question. And I think the first thing top of mind is that there's going to be a lot of employers there, everyone. As you know, you go to a career fair, there's going to be a host of employers. Sometimes it can feel a little overwhelming. And so the first thing I would say is it's almost impossible to meet everyone, right? And genuinely have that connection with that employer. So don't probably even attempt to do that. What I would say is pick your top 5 through 7 employers intentionally before you arrive, that you're strongly considering, strongly interested in, and focus in on them. Instead of just kind of showing up and trying your best to see as many as you can. Think about it before the fair, and I would say narrow it down to a good 5 to 7, that you can lock in and focus and know that you're going to put all your time into, right? Number 2, I would say, I'm sure a lot of you hear a lot about how to update your resume, keep it updated. And so I'm not just going to use that general term, but what I will say, what's very impactful about your resume is show me, don't just tell me. So what do I mean by that? For example, if you tutored, don't just say, I tutored high school students in math, for example, but show that result by saying I tutored 12 students weekly, and their average test scores rose 8%, 15% over a semester. So you want to be specific about what you actually accomplished. Also, practice a little short intro, maybe 30 seconds, 40 seconds, not that long. Who you are, what you've done, and what you're interested in. And if you kind of just prepare as you go into the fair and just have those little short answers in mind, it'll go a long way. And then lastly, I would say, maybe learn, I call it the 5-5-5 rule, 5 things about the company, 5 things about the role, and 5 questions that you want to ask to that employer. And you may want to cut it down to 2 or 3, but just go in with those 3 things in mind as you're going to that desk and looking at that company that, okay, I know 5 things about the company, I know 5 things about the role, and I know 5 questions that I want to ask.
I love that 5-5-5 rule. I've never heard of it put in that way. I think that's a really tangible way of preparing for a career fair. Thanks, Randall. Davy?
Yeah, I mean, those are the 3 golden rules. I don't think there's much to add, but what I can definitely recommend is, leading up to your career fairs is truly having that kind of self-assessment. Yes, it will be so busy. There's going to be lots of employers like L'Oreal also usually have very long lines, which we are so fortunate to have. But it's also around, once you're then either talking to a recruiter or to, someone from the business, what is it that you want to convey? What is your personal branding? What is it that you feel passionate about? What are your interests? So that we can help have some information about you to navigate the next 3 to 5 minutes that we have. So also be really mindful in terms of limited time that you might have with someone that you speak to. So have those little sentences already ready in terms of who you are, what is it that you're interested about, what are the different programs, have those questions ready so that we can have a really meaningful conversation with you.
I love that. We always tell them like quality of conversation is really important. Because you're more memorable, right? If you have a quality conversation with somebody. So you both kind of already touched on this of like, recommending to students that they should do some research before going to the career fairs, right? So this is kind of a two-part question. What should they research about organizations to stand out? And what have students told you about your organizations that made them stand out to you? Davey, do you want to get us started?
Yeah, happy to do that. I think when it comes to, your first question in terms of what they should research about L'Oreal in order to stand out, L'Oreal has very strong values. So it's entrepreneurial spirit, it's diversity, it's growth. So try to, learn a little bit more about them and why it's relevant to L'Oreal. And then also try to understand, what of these values also resonate with you and why do they resonate with you. I think the next step in terms of, why is something that also then stands out to me. You come, speak to me, speak about, I'm Entrepreneurial spirit really stood out to me when I researched L'Oreal, and this is why, because then I can truly see your thought process in terms of, you didn't just rehearse that and thought like this is great. It's also around like why is it truly relevant to you? Give me some examples. Is it because you're doing extracurricular on campuses? You are in the student club that is everything about entrepreneurship. Whatever it is, I want to hear it. And that helps me understand truly your background. And again, your interest, your passion, what are you standing for?
Yeah, we always recommend that to students, right? Like you want to convey your passion of not just the industry, but also what specifically about your organization stands out, right? And I like that you mentioned like certain things from L'Oreal's values too, right? Like DEI being one of them too. Randall?
Yeah, and great question. And perspective, because we have two different type of industries on the call today. So understanding what that is goes a long way as well. I'm coming from a nonprofit, service-based, impact type of work. And so when you're coming into that environment, I would say there's three layers that you start to think about in mission-driven nonprofit work. You're asking the question, okay, what is the actual mission and impact of that organization? So why does it exist? Who is it serving? And what initiatives are they actually trying to push out there to the world? So I'm asking those questions before I speak to that organization. I'm already knowing why they're here, what impact they're hoping to make in the world, and what's the actual specific initiatives that they're pushing out there, right? I'm also thinking about the second layer, which is pathway. Usually in these type of roles within City or AmeriCorps, Peace Corps, the service-oriented world, there are pathways to get in. They're easy to understand by just going onto the website. For example, what roles or programs are open to college students or those that are just graduating. There tends to be a lot of different pathways when it comes to this type of work. So understanding what that is before you come in will help you as well. And then I have what I called a proof point. And the proof point is us as the recruiter knowing that you did your research, and this is how we know how. Share something, share a recent news story, for example, or an event, or just a project that's going on recently in that organization. You will impress that recruiter so far because they'll know, okay, they didn't just kind of jump on real quick and came up with something and said, okay, I did my research. But the fact that you took the time to understand a recent story or event or initiative, it goes a long way. So think about that. And that said, I always remember a student just coming up to me and said, I heard that City Year did this, or I read about City Year doing that. and they're specifically talking about an event, but then they're also bringing themselves into the process by saying, this is how I want to contribute to that mission as well. So that's always going to go a long way as you step up to that desk and you present that you understand what that organization is about, but also where you fit into that organization or where you see yourself fitting in, right? But that's important.
Yeah, I love this advice. I always tell students to also like go beyond like what you see on Handshake, like maybe even looking at LinkedIn, websites, right, social media, because like you are both mentioning like our organizations will post like accomplishments, articles, like these are specific things you could point to at the table when you're having this conversation, right? But I appreciate both of your like perspectives on like what makes students like stand out at your tables. So kind of going into like when students approach you at tables, can you tell us what are some things that you like to hear in elevator pitches? And just kind of as a short follow-up, but like a common questions from students is also how long it should be.
Yeah.
And either of you can get us started.
I think for me, being a recruiter, I'm very pragmatic at times. I want to know, what's your name, obviously, what year are you in, what are you studying, or what is even your graduation date, and what are you interested about? Because that helps me navigate then our conversation because our programs are very much organized by student year. And so then I can introduce you to our different programs, and knowing already these key details about you helps me really framing that conversation a little bit better. So for me, fairly, it doesn't need to be super, super long. This is not an interview. I mean, obviously, it's a mini introduction into an interview. So I don't need to know a lot about you to have a meaningful conversation, but I need a few key details and then we can take it from there. Obviously, I'm going to have more follow-up question in terms of, all right, tell me a little bit more about your major. What does it entail? Why are you doing this? And that will help me navigate either recommending our research and innovation internship, or maybe it is operations because you have an engineering background, because you really like working with data, or is it marketing because you really love to think outside the box, but you never had experience yet before, and all these different things that I will uncover in this conversation, but give me a little bit of a frame of view, and then we'll take it from there.
Awesome. And, in the humanitarian world, service-oriented work, share your passion, share an example of what that even looks like. I love hearing a story of a particular volunteer role that you took on in your community to make it better, or how you mentored a young person to help them succeed in school. A big part of this type of work is that recruiter, that interviewer, that person that you may be on a video with to conduct an interview, they really want to see your passion. And the way to do that, share a story about what you have done to try to make the world a better place. It goes a long way, not just in that initial conversation at the table, but it goes a long way with that recruiter remembering you, and also when it's interview time, that recruiter or that person interviewing you can see your passion, but they also have examples of what you've even done so far to make this world of ours a better place. It goes a long way. So share a story. Storytelling is big. And just examples of you doing something good out there in your community, in the world, whether at school or whatever volunteer role or position you've taken on to serve others, right? That person on the other end, the recruiter, the interviewer, they're going to take that to heart. They're not going to forget that. And they're going to look at you as a person who, regardless of your skill set or not, have exemplified passion for helping other people. And it goes a long way. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's really great advice. And as a quick follow-up to both of you, I think students sometimes kind of get stuck on like length of time, right? So if they're practicing their elevator pitch, what should they kind of keep it to? Like, do you feel like 1 minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes? Like, what's too long for you?
I would say 30 to 45 seconds.
Okay.
Literally. Yeah.
Davy?
Well, is that I agree, yes.
Amazing. Okay. So I think that kind of gives our students like a very like tangible takeaway, right? As they're practicing their elevator pitches of like keeping it short on the shorter side, right? Because just as a reminder, like our recruiters do see a lot of students at their tables, right? Like you want to be mindful of like other people. So I appreciate that answer. And kind of getting into like dressing to impress. We always tell our students to, dress to impress for all of the recruitment fairs. How do you recommend for students to dress at career fairs? And does their attire impact your impression of them? Davey, if you want to get us started.
Yeah, happy to do that. Your attire definitely doesn't impact us in a negative way. Obviously, we would love to see you, you know, in a business casual or just what the setting is in at your campus, but I think this is a way for us as an organization to come to your campus to meet you where you're at. And so if you're an athlete, you're just coming out of your practice, and then that's totally fine. I think it's us sharing around, L'Oreal, what kind of company are we? What kind of opportunities do we offer? It's more so around also creating an informal environment. Again, I see career fairs not necessarily as truly formal interviews. It's more so around getting connected with students and campuses, learning more about them. But if you have the time to put on something that is business casual, that would be great. At L'Oreal, we are not very dressy. We do have a regular, business casual attire. Today I'm wearing a jeans dress, so whatever makes you feel comfortable. So that is usually our dress code, I would say. And that's also how we show up at campus. All ambassadors will come with a L'Oreal branded t-shirt. So it's nothing super fancy and nothing super, super formal.
Thanks, Davey. Randall, what is your sort of perspective on this?
And as you can probably sense, everybody, it's somewhat subjective. And so rule of thumb is somewhat read the room, right? Usually career fairs will somewhat give that guidance as to dress code. And so I would say certainly follow that and read the room of that event, because it goes both ways. There's events where they're encouraging you not to dress up. We don't want you to be so formal and feel uptight. We want you to be a little bit more casual. And then there's others that are expecting you to maybe put on that button-up shirt and everything is fitted and looking like. So I would say certainly look at the instructions of that particular career fair so that you can read the room correctly. But rule of thumb for me in life, obviously dressing the part, depending on where you're going to interview and what you're pursuing, goes a long way. And I'm going to throw myself in there a little bit. My dad always left the house to go to work in a suit, so it kind of rubbed off on me. It was kind of crazy, everybody. But he always taught me young, as a young man, how you present yourself, how you go out there is so important, and how people perceive you. Sometimes it's that first impression when someone looks at you, and how you've presented yourself, that they begin to, form an opinion of you. So always keep that in mind, because regardless of how you feel, someone on the other end is looking at you, observing you, and yeah, making judgments of you, right? So I think it's subjective. Read the room, be wise, keep up with that particular career fair and kind of what they're expecting of you as far as dress code. And if you follow it, it'll go a long way. Now, if you don't follow it and you go the opposite, if truth be told, it can affect you. And so you want to make sure that you're doing your due diligence in any event that you're going to, and how you present yourself. So leave it at that.
Yeah, I really like how you said, oh, go ahead, Davey.
One thing to add, I think it's a balance between, making a first great impression, but also being authentic to yourself. Because, you don't want to approach someone and, feel, too dressed up or not truly authentic to yourself, and you're putting something on that you're not truly is authentic to you. So I really would love to invite you to, come with something that you feel comfortable in, that you feel confident in order to, approach us at any booth, any recruiter, any business leader to introduce yourself.
Yeah, that's really great advice. And I like how, like Randall, you said that it's subjective, right? The thing is, like when you go to these tables, you don't know whether you're getting a Davy or getting a Randall, right? Some may be more informal, some more formal. That's why we recommend just to be safe in it and do more business casual, right? Because you are still, this is usually your first impression. But all great advice. I know for some it's like more informal, they're more casual with their dress. Like some engineering companies, they wear t-shirts, right? But again, at your first impression, typically you do want to, dress to impress a little bit. But again, read the room is really great advice. So before we get into the final question I have for you all, for our students in the audience, if you have questions for our panelists, please put them in the Q&A and we will have some time to answer them as well. So for my final question for you all, before we get into Q&A, what is one thing that students in the audience can do today to stand out for next week's recruitment fairs? And either of you can take it.
Randall, you want to take that one?
Sure. I think, from Cydia perspective, everyone, simple question as what makes someone thrive at your organization? As a recruiter, love to hear that. What allows someone to thrive in the work that you do? And I'm gonna immediately start to respond to you and say, hey, this is what it takes. This is what it takes. It kind of gets you into the door as far as specifically what that organization looks for. So it's a simple question. What allows someone to thrive in your organization? To that recruiter or that person standing at the desk, and you'll be amazed where that takes you, and you'll get a lot of answers as well as to what they're looking for, right? So, and you'll stand out.
I love that advice, Randall. Davy?
I think for me and in general at L'Oreal, we are very, very passionate about our job, whether that's in recruitment, in HR, in marketing, in operations. We really are so connected to our job. And so that is what truly builds resilience and really that kind of self-starter mindset here at L'Oreal and being that kind of go-getter. So what always stands out to me is if someone approaches me and says, I've recently worked on this project, I feel so passionate about because X, Y, and Z, and we were able to accomplish these things, or we're hoping to accomplish these things, that's something that is always a great way to start a conversation with anyone at L'Oreal, because then it allows us to understand, oh, you feel passionate about this. How does it translate to, maybe a internship in HR or an internship in commercial that works a lot with our retailers. So sharing your passion and interest on campus, off campus is something that is really interesting, or it ignites my interest in you to learn a little bit more about you, and then that will help us again take the conversation from there and where could you fit into our early careers programs, or where I would recommend checking it out or even applying, that could be interested and aligned to your passion and your interest.
I love that advice from both of you. Thank you so much. Okay, we're going to get into the Q&A from students. So how do you recommend for students to stay in touch and build a relationship with recruiters after meeting them at career fairs?
Usually what works really well with me is, depending on how the conversation went, and then to kind of close the loop, close the conversation is the student asking me, how can I stay in touch with you? And something that I always happy to offer is sharing my LinkedIn, and then stay connected through that. I always tell them, send me up feel free to send me a request, but also put in your note where have you met and give me a little bit of reference of what we spoke about, because that will allow me to then remember, oh yeah, we talked about this kind of project you've done in your recent class right now, and then I have a reference point. So that always allows me to stay connected and reach out back to you and be like, oh yeah, absolutely. This is what we just like, here's the link that I told you I'm going to send you, all these different things. So LinkedIn for sure.
Okay, I love that. Randall?
And for us, organizations like City Air, we definitely love to have some type of QR code there or form for you to fill out that gives us your basic information. Because as you probably know, a lot of people are gathering resumes throughout the day, and sometimes that can slip through the crack as far as following up with you. And so I love, and a lot of folks in our type of organization love when you complete the interest form, whether that's a QR code form or a written form. It would be great when you do fill it out. We love that because it puts you in our system. We can catch up with you. We don't have to run all over the place to try to find your resume or track you down. So even today, before we get off the call, at some point, I'm sure we'll share that information, but definitely fill out those interest forms or any kind of system that organizations have at the table to stay in contact with them. Because as far as just leaving your resume, we get so many of them, and sometime it'll be hard to follow up with you. So definitely take that 2 minutes, 1 minute, fill out that form. Usually it's your basic info, but it allows you to get into the system of that organization, and makes it easier for them to, catch up with you. So, yeah.
Mhm, yeah.
I can
And I think
definitely
that-
echo Randall. L'Oreal also will have a little QR code for every student to fill out. For one, it allows us to stay in contact with you, have those follow-up, conversations with you, but also the resume piece. L'Oreal is a very, sustainable, conscious organization. So we don't really accept paper resumes. So the best way to really make sure that we receive your resume is through uploading your CV in via that QR code. So that is the best way to stay in touch with us as the organization itself. But with me personally, LinkedIn for sure.
Thank you both. But I think something that, students will take away is like, one, it kind of varies by recruiter, by table, right? Like for some, it's the QR code, the contact form, and also having a digital copy ready of your resume. For some, it's LinkedIn, right? So kind of like maybe even directly asking recruiters, would you say that would be a good way to stay in contact? That kind of goes for both of you, Davey and Randall. But like if students just ask you, how to stay in contact directly. Do you think that's like a good impression too?
Definitely, because it might, even in that moment, be a little subjective. That recruiter
Mhm.
would probably, for example, want to refer you to the
Mhm.
higher ups because you really made such a good impression on them that they may want to take a more hands-on follow up with you compared to other candidates. Does that make sense? So if you ask them that question, they may say, hey, email me today so that I can, do XYZ and get you over to a hiring manager, for example. So it's always best to ask because it'll be a little bit more tailored to you specifically. And they may be terribly interested in you and want to catch up with you ASAP, based on your interest and just based on what they heard from you. And they would probably want to hire you, for example, right? So they don't want you to get lost in the cracks. So ask the question.
Yeah. Thank you, Randall. And kind of just to go into our next question, what do you look for in a potential candidate for an internship if they don't have much work experience? So this is a common question we get as career advisors for students who maybe it's their first or second year, they don't have any work experience. What do you recommend for them to like put on their resume, or what kind of experiences do you look for them?
That's a great question. I think for L'Oreal, I would say it's totally fine if you don't have yet previous internship experience, because that's the reason why we have internships. The learning, the development, the growth is at the forefront, and so that allows you to really get the hands-on experience. So, at some point you got to get started, and so maybe L'Oreal is your first way to get started with an internship. So don't feel not encouraged to apply or even come up to us if you don't have internship experience just yet. So wanted to make that clear. But what you could put on your resume to now answer your question is that, are you involved in student clubs? Are you doing other extracurricular work? Have you even done, I don't know, a side job at ice cream shop? Whatever it is, put it on your resume because I do want to see what you've been up to. What have you been up to besides your regular classes? Put on your resume that you feel super passionate about sports, any type of sports, because this is really taking up the time besides school. Because I do then through these different type of engagements see that you also do have time management. You are doing full time your undergrad program, whatever program you're doing, but you also have other interests and passion outside work that require you to be, very sensitive with your time and organize yourself. So I would say those are great ways to put on your resume, or even project work that you have done. At your school, highlight a little bit, what you've been doing, what your outcome was, or even case studies. Case studies also have been super popular to, from employers, but also from students to engage with different organization, learn from those organization, but it also helps you build your resume. So those are also great things to put on.
Yeah, Randall?
And I'll throw some empathy in the space right now to say, I know that for a lot of you, that could probably be the most frustrating part of the career path is running into, we're looking for experience and we want 5 years, 7 years, 3 years. But the whole point is I need to get started, right, in order to get that experience, and I'm not getting that start. So I know that can be frustrating sometimes. And I will say, as far as the service nonprofit world, we put less emphasis on that. And especially these type of service year experiences, because they work perfectly for a year or 2 years or a gap year, where you do gain the professional experience and opportunities to build up your professional career before you move into your long-term goals. So we emphasize, outside of years of experience, it really is about passion. It really is about you sharing volunteer roles that you've taken on, goals that you actually have to do a service year, more so than how many years you have on your resume with a specific skill. Because we do take in context how difficult it is for young people fresh in college, fresh out of college, to actually get started, rather than running into this kind of wall of you don't got experience yet. So opportunities like what we present out there is for that type of young person who needs to gain experience, gain professional development, and also have a solid foundation to move into, longer term roles. So we don't put a lot of emphasis on years of experience. We put emphasis on your passion, your desire, your goals to actually, make a difference in the world. That's the most important thing for us. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I love this advice from both of you. And just as a reminder, like when students are looking for internships, like recruiters, you all understand, like they're earlier in their career, right? They're not going to have much like work experience yet. And so there are other places where you could supplement that, like experience and passion with extracurriculars, academics, and projects that you all mentioned. And passion does go a long way. Right? It seems like for Randall, especially in like your type of work and industry, it goes pretty far. But for our next question, so we have a student who asked if you could each share like a networking example from a career fair, for example, a career fair to hired story, if you have one.
Yeah, there's so many. So at L'Oreal, we have different entry points for students like you all. I mean, I mentioned in the beginning, we have the way our early careers programs are organized are by year. So we have the fellowship program, who are for students in their sophomore years. We have our internship program, summer internship program, who are for students in their junior year, as well as our management training program, who are more for seniors or, recent graduates. And so I can think of many success stories where we met someone at campus that, we hired into the internship, even the fellowship. But I think what specifically comes to mind to share an direct example is, we engaged with students there, and I really connected with one of the students that, was more so really trying to understand about L'Oreal. He was very much or surprised about all the brands that we own. L'Oreal is a huge conglomerate. It's a group that is represented across the globe, and we own more than 37 global brands. And so one of the brands that he highlighted was Kiehl's, and so or even CeraVe. I think it was CeraVe. Not knowing that L'Oreal owns that brand or was acquired by it. And we talked about our diverse portfolio and all of these things. And so we kept engaging after this conversation. And so he applied to the fellowship, which is a 9-month mentoring program. And it's a virtual program where you engage with senior leaders on a monthly basis to really learn about the different business units within L'Oreal, different brands as well, how to build an elevator pitch, how to put your resume together that preps you for the summer internship. And so that person also got hired into the summer internship, done the internship with us 11 weeks, and then received a return offer for the MT program, which is a 2-year rotational program that prepares you to then graduate out of this program to really position yourself well as in, this case, it was a strong marketer. So he went through the marketing track. So, really, you never know where it could lead. This one conversation that you have with either someone with the recruiter or even the ambassadors, the business ambassadors, that could really open up lots of different doors by just being curious and coming up and, asking a little bit of, learning more about L'Oreal, because all these different programs will funnel into your next program. Your next program is if L'Oreal is something that you would love to continue staying at and learning more about.
Awesome. And I'll just add a big part of service year opportunities like City Year, AmeriCorps, Peace Corps, and others is the network and opportunities in career track. And what do I mean by that? As far as AmeriCorps itself, we partner with colleges across the country, but also organizations across the country who help to partner with us, help with career tracks, where, for example, we had one young person who was specifically wants to do a service year, not necessarily interested in education or becoming a humanitarian. They really want to get into business and entrepreneurial type of work. And so we do have a partnership with Deloitte, one of the largest organizations in the world, who sponsors City Year. And also when they receive a resume from anyone who's gone through the City year and completed it successfully, they can pass through hiring managers to go directly to the hiring manager, what we call non-competitive status. So if 20 people applied for that role and have to go through 3 interviews, you would have to only go through 1. And so we have a lot of that. And just to put myself personally in there, it's the only way I would say, got my internship with the United Nations that allowed me to go on and work with them, was through the alumni network in Washington, D.C. So once I finished my year of service, I was able to, spice up my resume a little bit and get it to a connection within the alumni network, who was able to then take my resume to the hiring manager for the United Nations, that eventually got me that interview and was able to work with the UN for a number of years. But it all started from my service year and that network and alumni department that we have a large, I would say it's not just a national, but I would say an international alumni network that if you're interested in specific career tracks, specific areas, we can kind of take you down that road as you start your service year to kind of prepare you before your year's over, to connect you to the right sources in that field. So whether that's business, for example, here in LA, we do have Octavia Spencer, who's a part of the City Year board, who kind of connects with those in the acting world here in LA. And we try to make young people go to specific events within the entertainment industry here in Los Angeles, for example. Business, again, and like me, who was interested in international affairs, we do have the connection with the United Nations as well. So our alumni network is very expansive. And so what I would encourage anyone, if you do pursue this type of work or a gap year service year opportunity, is let your advisor know from day one what you're interested in, what networks you would love to connect with, so that as you close out your year, you already have your resume going to the right people to connect you to get those interviews and to move into your career choice. So love to talk more about that if we ever get the chance.
I love the stories you both shared. We'd love to hear success stories, right? Kind of pivoting a little bit to the opposite of that. What are some things that students should not do at a career fair? Like something that gave you a bad impression or just some absolute no's so students can avoid?
That's a good one. I think for me specifically, if Randall, you don't mind me going first, I'm a very open-minded recruiter. I always give a lot of benefit of doubt. I totally recognize that you are still in school and trying to figure it out, and that is totally fine. So I've never met anyone that I felt like, oh my God, this is like a total no. I think it's more so around, all right, how can I coach you that next time you can do it a little bit better, in terms of, your introduction or even what you feel interested about or passionate about. So I think it's more so around. What I'm trying to say is that I don't think I have met anyone who it was truly a no, but it's also because I'm very much of an open-minded recruiter. But a total no, I think it would more so be someone who I always refer to as not able to land the plane. So if you give me your introduction and it's, might be a little bit longer than I anticipated, I would really hope that at the end, you're then able to land the plane and say, okay, this is who I am, and finish your sentence instead of, going and going and going. That would be maybe something that I feel like could be a no. But also it's just more so, maybe the nerves, and next time you'll just do it better.
Right. And I agree with you. I don't think there's ever a hard no to anyone based on how they interacted with you at the table. But I will say, and just to be funny, there was one time guy was walking by and he just kind of barely looked at me and just kind of put his resume down, just kind of kept on walking. Didn't no hello, no nothing. It was just like a little glance, and it was like pop resume and kept walking. And in that moment, again, the empathetic me says could be very shy, could be having a bad day, could be nervous. But it somewhat was a lost opportunity because I didn't even get to say hi. He didn't get to express anything. And so even if you're feeling the nerves, understand that recruiter, once they kind of look at you or you're approaching, they'll help to usher in that conversation. Don't be too hard on yourself to always have to initiate everything in the conversation, but just you come up, whether you smile, whether you're a little nervous, a short hello, and that conversation could get started. But yeah, he kind of just ran away. But outside of that, there's never a hard no. We're always in a mindset of trying to help you to be the best you, depending on, the career that you want to go down to. So, even if you're shy, even if you're nervous, even if so much is boiling up in you and you just don't feel like going up to that table, short little hello, smile can get the conversation going, and you'll be surprised how it turns into something positive for you. So just do what you can to say hello and start that convo.
Yeah, I love this advice, and it's normal to be nervous.
Yeah.
It's okay, but just remember, like, the recruiters are there to meet you, right? Davy and Randall, like, they love to meet students. They love to see your passion. So even if you're nervous, like, start the conversation. And I think this is a really good segue into what will be probably my last question for you all, but or second to last question. But I think students kind of struggle with like what kind of questions they should be asking you at the table. right? And I think they have trouble like, you know, understanding what that conversation should be past the elevator pitch. So do you have any advice for what questions they should have for you?
I mean, for me, it's really what are you generally interested and curious about? This is your time to learn more about the employer, whether that's company culture, whether that's, you know, the person career path. How did they end up at L'Oreal? Are you interested in learning more about our early careers programs, how you can get into L'Oreal, with the kind of background that you have? So it's really, you know, I'm here to answer your questions. Um, so it can really range, honestly. I'm open to answer any questions. Um, that is, you know, relevant to the student. I think there's no true secret sauce on terms of, you know, how you land a job from a career fair. It's really, you know, again, what I mentioned in the beginning, us as the employee, we come to campus because we want to share more about L'Oreal or, you know, in organization in general and more information and create that awareness. So utilize that time in how you want to utilize that time.
It's great. I I would just say a yes and a yes and a yes to that because it's your question. It's how you feel, it's your interest, and we want to cultivate that. We want to answer that. And the reality that you've already done some of your research, you've entered into that career fair, knowing your top employers that you're interested in means you've already done your homework. You already have a certain amount of understanding about that organization, what they do. And so toward the end of that conversation, what question you want to ask is really what's on your mind because we want to answer it. We know that you're interested already. And so we want to cultivate what you're interested in being answered. So you've done the research, you put in the time to prepare before the fair to understand the employers you're interested in. Ask your questions, right? Because we want to answer them. We want to get down to it. We want to grow with you, communicate with you, follow up with you. So I think that's the key. After having done all the research and doing your due diligence about the organization, I think you're ready to just ask the way with what's really in your heart to share. So go for it.
I think to also put it in different words is, you know, similar. You know, you've done your research, you read everything that you can find online. So now you have someone, you have a representative from this organization at your campus. So now it's like, okay, maybe it's even hard questions. Be like, so I read about this, about your company culture. Is that actually true? Can you, you know, tell me a little bit more about that? And then, you know, I'd be happy to answer that of like, is that truly true that an intern always have a seat at a table and we want to hear your perspective? Yes, it is true. And then I can share you examples. And so it's like using it as an opportunity, similar to the session, get the inside scoop of someone who is from that employer so you can get your questions answered and something that is not online that you cannot read up, something that you cannot research, to, you know, get those answers.
Thank you so much for your advice, Davy and Randall. So we are gonna start wrapping up, but before we do you both have like something you want to share with the students in terms of like any opportunities you're hiring for? They're both going to be at our fairs next week. So I encourage you, everyone attending today, to go see them at the tables. I think Randall, you're gonna have a different representative, but it's okay. You can still mention that you attended this, right? And maybe that'll help in your conversation. But if Davy and Randall, if you want to share any links for our students to connect with you or learn more about opportunities, if you could share that in the chat, that would be amazing. And let me go ahead and make sure that everyone can see your links. So this is the link shared by Randall, for anyone interested in City Year and connecting with Randall. And then Davy, if you have anything you would like to share.
Yes, I would be absolutely happy to share my personal LinkedIn if you haven't found me yet. But yeah, I'll be there next week at your campus. I cannot wait to be there. So please come by and say hi. reference that you listened to us and attended the session. Hopefully this worked and everyone can see this, and I just put in the chat. Refer to this session. I would love to have a follow-up conversation. Ask me hard questions, anything you want to know, I'm here. But yeah, in terms of programs, we have a huge repertoire from all years. Even if you're freshman year, we have this amazing brand case study competition that's called Brandstorm. I'm happy to share more about that as well once we meet there. So lots of different exciting programs to get involved with L'Oreal.
Awesome. And I just shared interest forms. So regardless of where this interest form or any particular event, it'll usually go to me because I do head the recruitment on campus at USC. So I will be at all career fairs, everybody, virtual and in person. The only one I'm missing is on September 11th, but we'll have somebody there representing. But I'll be on all the virtual events, looking forward, and also in person. This interest form will go directly toward me, and it'll put you in the AmeriCorps system. So it'll create a profile for you, and we'll be able to communicate. You'll have my information, and we'll also have your information in the AmeriCorps system by filling out that form.
All right, thank you both so much for joining us. Pro tip to students, I really encourage you to go to their tables and mention that you were at this panel. See, they're both so excited. So thank you for joining us. Thank you, Davey and Randall, for all of your insights, for giving us the inside scoop from the recruiter's perspective on career fair preparation. But thank you everyone for joining.
Thanks for having us.